Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new effort is underway to attract NHL hockey back to the Valley. Also tonight, we'll meet a Ukrainian guitarist who uses music to represent his culture and his country. And a new book looks at the transformation in how society addresses breast cancer. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A new committee's been formed to try to bring NHL hockey back to the Valley. The goal is to get a new team and a new arena after the departure of the Arizona Coyotes franchise, which relocated to Utah last year. To learn more, we welcome Thomas Galvin, chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Tom, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, the advisory panel on pro hockey to Arizona. What is that?
Yeah, well, you know, last year when I saw the Coyotes leave town, I was really upset by it, not just as a sports fan, but as a community booster and an advocate for our valley and for the state. I believe this is a reputational hit for Arizona. We are a state that attracts pro sports teams. That's who we're able to get our football team, the Cardinals. And because we're such a big growth state, we're not usually in the business of losing teams to other states. And I just found it really unfortunate. But one of the things I noticed was that people took glee in the demise of the Coyotes, and I really got upset by that. And I consider it to be our hockey team. I underscore the word our. And I really want to see what we can do to get a professional team back, because it's not just a sports question, but it's an economic development question as well.
When you say people took glee when the team left, what did you see? What did you hear?
Yeah, I saw politicians taking shots at the Coyotes before their scheduled state land auction. And of course, after it happened, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people just said, well, that's the Coyotes. What I like to do is separate the Coyotes that got bad headlines because of the various ownership groups that screwed up over the years, and separate it from the really good fan base that we have here in the Valley, and also the welcoming opportunity that we always provide businesses that want to come here.
I want to get to that previous ownership in a second here, but who's on the committee?
We haven't announced the names yet, but we did announce one big name this week, and it's Andrea Doan, the wife of Shane Doan, who played for the Coyotes the entire time that they were here. Andrea is also a mother of an NHL player. Their son Josh played for the Coyotes as well, and she's going to be a terrific partner of mine and also a great chair of the committee, and she's going to really do a good job of expounding and expanding for the Valley.
Okay, the biggie obviously is finding a new ownership group. Judging from previous ownership groups, what are you looking for and what are you looking to avoid?
Well, first of all, they have to have deep pockets. And unfortunately, in this day and age of pro sports, they have to be a billionaire. So if you know any billionaires that are interested in hockey teams, give me a call. But secondly, and I've been saying this in various interviews, they have to care about the community. They have to care about the Valley. We had a press conference last week with Andrea Doan, but we did it at the Scottsdale Ice Den with the Shot Foundation, which is a youth hockey advocacy group. And at the podium, we were surrounded by kids. These are kids who love to play hockey. It's boys and girls of all ages. And so whoever wants to come in and bring a hockey team back to the Valley, do it as we're doing it, building it from the bottom up, not from the top down, and show that you care about the community.
Is that the problem, building from top down? Was that among the problems of previous ownership? Los Arcos, for goodness sakes, was going to be a hockey arena. They've been all over the place.
And that was 20 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I want to bring it back to the mandate of the committee that I have established since I announced it back in January. It's two things. One is to find the owner, as we discussed, but two is to find a good, viable location. And the previous iterations of the Coyotes just didn't work because they never found a good location. If you want to have a world-class arena, great, but you have to have a good location. So this committee, we're going to work together, political leaders, business leaders, and hockey experts. It's a three-legged stool, and we're going to collectively come up with an idea where the best place is and hopefully identify the best owner.
Define, though, a viable, suitable place for an arena.
Okay, well, we all know that the Coyotes didn't work out in their previous location out in the West Valley. So there's only certain locations that I think would be good. You need to be near a downtown core. You need to have good access to highways. You also need to be near where your fan base was. And what the Coyotes realized was that their fan base was not out in Glendale. They're downtown and in the East Valley. One of the reasons why they went to Mullet Arena at ASU, but the arena was too small. Also, in this day and age, people want the suites, they want all the bells and whistles, they want all the amenities. If you want to do it, don't build it out in the middle of nowhere. Let's identify a good site to host it.
The possibility of using public funds to build an arena, is that on the table?
That's a hypothetical that, frankly, the new owner will have to deal with. But I just saw firsthand how the Chase Field deal was done. That was a bipartisan effort at the state legislature between Governor Hobbs, a Democrat, and the state legislature was controlled by Republicans. But Chase Field is a community asset. It's owned by the government. So public-private partnerships work in theory sometimes, but that's a long way down the road. We need to find the owner and the location first.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it didn't work all that well with Tempe.
No,
with
it
the
didn't work that well
Coyotes.
for Tempe politically for the previous Coyotes ownership.
Yes.
So whoever comes in, whatever they want to do to advocate for public support, they got to do it the right way.
So how does this effort, this recruiting, this is basically a recruiting effort on the whole here.
Yep.
How does this differ from past recruiting efforts, getting ownership, finding the right arena? Everything you've talked about
Yeah.
has been attempted in the past, and the hockey team's now in Utah.
Well, it's about leadership, but also what I say is I want to under-promise and over-deliver. I think a lot of times the previous Coyotes ownership groups over-promised to fans, sold a bill of good to fans. Even the last ones who are guaranteeing that they're going to win the state land auction, that whole thing was a shambolic effort that fell apart 2 days in advance. So what I'm going to do is work with these folks behind the scenes, do the hard work behind closed doors. We're not looking for camera flash bulbs. We're not looking for headlines. We're going to announce news when there is news, but the hard work has to be done behind closed doors, and it has to be done in collaborative effort with local experts.
What about collaborative effort with the NHL? Have you talked to the NHL? What are they saying? I mean, the commissioner has always been so high on Arizona, almost to a fault.
Right.
I would imagine he's interested, but I don't know how interested.
Well, this whole process started almost a year ago when I cold called Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, and got a meeting with him. To the surprise and shock of my staff. But we had a great meeting, and when I said this is what I was interested in, he said absolutely. And he's been a great partner. But also at the same time, for Gary Bettman's perspective, we're not entitled to a hockey team or an NHL team. We have to go out and earn it. We have to show how we're going to do it the right way. So he's watching us. He's watching several other cities. I'm not concerned about these other cities. I'm concerned about Phoenix. But what I'm doing here is that I'm working as a regional booster, a community advocate, and saying this is the greatest place to host sports. We have the Super Bowl. We have NASCAR. We have the Phoenix Open. We can do this.
Yeah, last question. We can do this. We tried it, and we didn't work last time. That's A. But B, for those watching right now saying, why should I possibly care at all about us getting, the community getting an NHL hockey franchise?
Well, first of all, Salt Lake City is very happy that they took away our team. Secondly, the entire country took notice that we did lose a team, and frankly, it played out in national headlines how the whole process fell apart. And three, it's an economic development driver. One of the things that surprised me after my initial announcement in January was how many businesses were affected by the loss of the Coyotes who reached out to me and told me, including their dentist, which I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So there's secondary and tertiary aspects of this, and for me, it's just about economic development and about our regional reputation.
Thomas Galvin, Chair, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, talking about the advisory panel on pro hockey to Arizona. Good to see you again.
Great, Ted. Thank you.
In this episode, musician Ruben Blades and journalist Natalie Morales uncovered their roots.
How does it make you feel to read that?
I was afraid you would find this.
You can't make this up.
Incredible. And the fact that it wasn't shared by anyone before.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
On American Experience. In the midst of the Vietnam War, Lower Manhattan becomes a battlefield.
The Hard Hat Riot is a microcosm of the polarization that will come to define American life.
Hard Hat Riot on American Experience.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
This is the moment I've been waiting for.
You could feel the richness of the story.
That's so awesome.
Penguins are incredibly dedicated parents.
The Mosh Pride have moved audiences for decades.
We're going to watch this calf through its first year of life. That's what we want to see.
Ukrainian classical guitarist Marko Topchi visited ASU back in January as part of a concert tour. Topchi was born into a musical family in Ukraine, and his talents have been honored and recognized worldwide. He's also using his music to represent his culture and his country. The team at Central Sound at Arizona PBS has this report.
For guitarists all over the world, there's one competition that stands out from the rest. the Guitar Foundation of America's International Concert Artist Competition. The 2023 winner, Ukrainian guitarist Marko Topchi, visited Arizona State University as a part of his concert tour and spoke about his competition journey and his resolve to create a legacy as a Ukrainian musician.
After the GFA, unusually for myself, I listened to that performance. I was just like getting used to the fact that this happened, that this was me. I remember I was very glad about that performance because I know how I could have broken down on in any moment possible. And sometimes it's not just about having a good day. Like, I was actually late for the competition. I was late for the sound check. I was like in my taxi in New York. I was just like, forgot my headset in the taxi. I was my typical self. And then you have to be focused when you perform.
The GFA stands for Guitar Foundation of America, and it has been an organization that supports the classical guitar internationally. In existence since 1973, so 52 years as of this year. The thing that I think carries the most international intrigue is the competition. And this competition has become somewhat of, the international championship for classical guitar. And it attracts the top young players from around the world. They come really seeking the prize, which is not just cash, cash is great, but it's a big concert tour.
I decided to use a lot of competitions as my means of development. I actually had to learn how to play the way I like or the way I need to. Because when you're on stage at a competition, when you know that people are not only listening to you, but actually heavily evaluating you, it becomes such a, I would say, mind-bending thing that you sometimes want to just surrender. So not surrendering your thinking is actually a very important skill that I have to learn to develop.
Marko stands out not just because he was a winner. He stands out because he's an artist, and he has been from the day I met Marko. Through his years competing, he won a ridiculous number of competitions, and then he also didn't win probably also a ridiculous number of competitions. In a competition, sometimes the safer player wins. There's absolutely nothing safe about Marko. What we're safe with Marko is that he's going to do something that we haven't seen before.
Well, so many times I have been criticized for being non-conservative with my program, and this was usually very often actually the reason why there were either certain no's, or I wouldn't even say no's, but I would be in the finals but would not get the top prize, for example.
With Marko, all I ever felt when I handed him second prize or third prize for the, however many at the time, all I ever felt from Marko was gratitude and appreciation. As the organizer, I don't root for anyone. I root for everyone to do their best. I root for the jury to do their work in the most equitable way, and I'm always happy for whoever wins. But I will say that there was a little extra happiness when I got to hand him the #1 prize, and the world was there to celebrate with him. I was really happy for him in that moment.
And he has officially competed with us for the very last time. First prize, Marko Topchi from Ukraine.
The 2022 Russian invasion into Ukraine changed the lives of Ukrainians forever. Marko took a moment to reflect on what his role is as a musician amidst the conflict.
When the invasion into the Ukraine happened, I was thinking that I should actually accelerate in my own development, in my work on Ukrainian music. That's like the point. I decided that I need to keep on working on wherever I am as a Ukrainian representative. Immediately when the war began, I realized that I need to make an arrangement on something Ukrainian.
I would say that most of us are not particularly familiar with composers from Ukraine. Marko is working to change that, which I think is really cool. So he is frequently presenting works from his country. And I think part of what I love and appreciate about Marko is that Marko is who he is because of from whence he comes. And he celebrates that and brings that all to us. So he has presented more Ukrainian composers in his repertoire, in competition, on stage. And touchingly, he's been playing works by his mother, who's a pianist-composer.
It's my vital need to work on music like that, to work on Ukrainian music and kind of continue or expand the legacy of the culture. Every time I perform the piece, I feel like I'm transferring this energy of love to my mother. I get to involve people in that process. And I think it's very strategic that I put this piece to the very end of my program because it has a certain pedestal. So to make sure that it does not go unnoticed because of the placement of the piece. The situation is just like so intense. Literally, one of the first rockets that hit my city, which is the capital of Ukraine, if you don't know what's happening, you don't know if Ukraine will be actually captured altogether and people will be repressed, for example, for who they are or what they think. It could have been easily possible had not the Ukrainians decided to defend themselves. A lot of fates have been changed, including those that just had to relocate, change of plans, major change of plans for everyone. To me, it spoke that I have to mobilize myself and that I actually have to accelerate and I have to be responsible. It's very, very different from the person that I was before the invasion. And all that together makes you understand that all these drone bombings and shellings, they are real and they're not just happening somewhere else. But I think by being a Ukrainian and by being able to communicate with people after concerts or in my social media space, which is the place to discuss those things that are global, I think it's an opportunity.
And a programming note, we will re-air the segment on Marco Topci tonight at 11 o'clock, followed by The Porcelain War, the story of 3 artists who choose to stay in war-torn Ukraine. That's all here later tonight on Arizona PBS.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Israel signs on to a new U.S. proposal to end the war in Gaza. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
A new book looks at the impact of 3 influential women in igniting a movement to change the way society addressed breast cancer. The book is titled Radical Sisters: Shirley Temple Black, Rose Kushner, Evelyn Lauder, and the Dawn of the Breast Cancer Movement. We welcome the author of Radical Sisters. There she is, Judith Pearson. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on the book. This is really something
Thank
here.
you.
I want you to explain the title, though. Radical Sisters.
Well, if you were of an age when we used to say things were rad, meaning that it was really cool, radical has that connotation, and it also has the connotation of doing something really out of the box, out of the ordinary. But in breast cancer, the radical mastectomy, which was done for 100 years, right up until the 1980s and 90s, took women's, not only their breasts, but all of their lymph nodes, their pectoral muscles, sometimes bones. Women were debilitated for the rest of their lives. So the middle lady, my middle sister, took care of that.
Yeah, that was Rose Kushner.
Exactly.
But everyone kind of knows Shirley Temple Black and
Right.
Estee Lauder, Evelyn Lauder, the family there. But Shirley Temple Black, I mean, that's a big name. And all three of these, what did they do and how loud did they have to get to change what seemed like a paradigm when it came to breast cancer?
Well, you know, first of all, it's interesting to remember that cancer doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, white or black, famous or not famous, everybody gets cancer. And I think sometimes, comforting isn't the right word, but I think sometimes that gives just us poor, ordinary people a little bit of feeling better about the whole thing. Shirley was the first celebrity to talk about her cancer, and in fact, she had a press conference in her hospital room in 1972 at a time when cancer was still considered contagious. So there she is in her hospital room with a little gardenia in her hair, and all these journalists were asking questions. That was radical in and of itself. And then she wrote an enormously long article for McCall's Magazine, and she went on the Mike Douglas show. And all those three things were never done.
Why were they never done? I mean, you talk about the myths. How cancer wasn't mentioned, breast cancer was hardly mentioned. I mean, was it just, what was going on here with society?
Well, in addition to the myth that cancer was contagious, it also didn't have a great outcome. About the time that Shirley was diagnosed in 1972, really only half of those diagnosed survived their disease. We were just beginning to use radiation and chemotherapy, so it was a death sentence, and it was too frightening to think about.
It was thought of as a taboo, was it not?
And that too. Again, the contagion thing, if you had it, that meant your family might have it. Nobody wanted to be your friend.
Now, that's one thing, but on the other side, research. It seems like there was a lack of research going on as you talk about. It seemed like there wasn't the kind of research on this that we see or saw, I guess, in other diseases and conditions.
When I was a little girl, my dad used to always say, good little girls should be seen and not heard. And that's pretty much the case with breast cancer survivors. They realized, the advocates realized that they needed money for research, but they weren't getting the money. And then they took a page out of the AIDS movement book, because the AIDS people got organized really quickly. They made lots of noise. They had celebrities attached to it. And after these three glorious sisters did their work in the early 90s, that's when the breast cancer movement really got started.
And you mentioned these three glorious sisters. They never met, did they?
They didn't. They did not. And in fact, just a little inside story of how you write a book, I wanted to write about Rose Kushner. My agent and my editor said, oh, we need some famous names tossed in there. And I kind of pushed back about it, but they were absolutely right, because one story just flows into the next, and the book actually ends in the year 2000.
Yeah. How loud did they have to get their voices heard?
They got really loud, and they became very graphic in their descriptions of what life was like trying to survive cancer. They made sure that those advocates who still had the disease were front and center to really explain to people, look, we can stop this. We just need awareness for the research. And let me just toss in, I know we're going into October, and sometimes we get really tired of awareness and tired of pink, but if it wasn't for the awareness part of it that especially Evelyn Lauder created, the research dollars never would have flowed.
How did she create that?
She, first of all, started the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, which was willing to take a chance on out-of-the-box thinking when it came to diagnostics and treatment. And then she was a co-creator of the Pink Ribbon. And again, I know a lot of people are like, oh, the Pink Ribbon. I was that way too. But it is really, really important that we remember to keep the pedal to the metal as far as research goes.
And Rose Kushner, her story, real quickly here.
Her story, she testified before Congress begging for money for research and to cover insurance to cover mammograms and reconstruction.
Did you find anything surprising in your research that was, I mean, like extra surprising?
The three of them, as young women, Shirley actually as a child, almost died. each of them individually. If they had died, imagine how different things would be. And I just thought that was really, not to go all woo-woo on you, but I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating that we're talking about the 1970s. The
And 80s and
1980s
90s.
and
I know.
90s.
I
That
know.
wasn't that long ago.
It was not. It was not. And in fact, women weren't even included in clinical trials until the 1990s.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
So what got you to write this book?
Well, I had written 2 other books that were about other cancer heroes. And then, as I said, I had met Rose Kushner, with the research for those. So I've sort of written this accidental, out-of-order trilogy, sort of like George Lucas, but without the money.
Yeah, yes. Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you
this.
so
This is
much.
a work
Thank
well
you.
done. And again, you're going to be changing hands in Phoenix tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night at 6:30. Everybody come.
All right, Radical Sisters, again, Judy Pearson, and congratulations again.
Thanks, Ted.
Great work. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.